Dave's Killer Bread is ready to rock your January reset with killer taste, killer nutrition, and a chance to win a VIP concert prize pack. Text RESET to 73876 to enter. No purchase necessary. Visit daveskillerbread.com/reset for details.
Best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America. And in the West was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
And good evening, welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show.
Hang on a second.
What? Why do you interrupt
That was a
me?
beautiful song, but we're starting 3 minutes late. So if Ken is going to sing that song again, and he has a beautiful voice.
He does. I can't believe he nailed
He's
that.
got a beautiful voice, but Ken.
Started a minute earlier. I love you pipes, but come on.
Yeah, you got some chops, and we love you.
You got some chops.
I don't know what that means.
We're in the biz.
It's an
not a
industry
big
term. It's
deal.
not a
It
big
is the
deal.
25th of February, 2014. 15. What year is it? Still 15. Okay, good. Had to
I wish it was
double-check my
16,
notes.
because then we'd be near the end of the Obama era.
Oh, just dream a little dream.
Don't sing.
Thank you so much for everyone who's joined us this evening at shrmedia.com. Chat room is open. We are excited for tonight's show, as you can tell. And by that,
No, we're not.
You're not?
No.
Why were you just dancing?
Well, because, did you hear the song that was playing?
I'm sorry.
Why did you start the bubble machine and hand me glow sticks?
I didn't really think that was the time to twerk. I'm just saying. I can't believe you did that here in the studio, but all right, whatever.
I can't believe you didn't film it and put that out, is what I can't believe, because that was the whole purpose.
Oh, man, so much to talk about this week. How was your week as you're trying... Oh. No, go ahead.
No, I'm here.
No,
please.
I want you to try to use the computer while we're on the radio.
by all means. This is going to take me about 30 minutes to get going.
Okay.
Because there's a keyboard now.
I know.
When did that get there?
Well, we install these things when you're not listening, when you're not looking, when you're not paying attention. We put these new fangled devices in. We did get rid of your scribe, and I apologize for that. I know you were a big fan of that.
No, I'm happy. Listen, I have a new whiteboard, and I don't mean anything racial by that
No.
for all of our white people that are listening, so I apologize. But it's a dry erase board, I guess I should say.
Yes.
I could say blackboard, but I don't want to alienate Ken either.
Right.
Not that you're an alien because you're black, Ken, but
Yeah,
just
going down this road already,
You
aren't
know
you?
what I mean.
No, you're just going down this road
No, I'm
already.
saying it's not. I'm being inclusive. I'm saying that it's not racial in tone.
Les sigh.
So I'm excited. We have a new whiteboard
We do have a new whiteboard. We have
that
a new-
I can actually put the board up now instead of just doing it on lined paper, which I have my notes on anyway.
Right. And we do have a new easel that we made. Liberal Jake put up.
Liberal Jake did put up because, and we didn't pay him
No.
because
Well,
we
he's-
wanted to teach him a lesson in slave labor, which we need to bring back in this country in terms of getting rid of child labor laws and so forth. And he's kind of cute like a child. So we're kind of just playing. He's turning bright red right now. I'm going to pay for that one later. I love you. Look, cut his mic. Cut it. Cut it.
That's excellent. That's excellent radio. You describe what color I am. No one can see this. It's not fun.
No. Well, it is funny.
It is funny.
It's
I
funny
mean,
to us.
It looks
at the
like
end of the day.
It looks like it's the color of a tomato sitting on top of a neck, which is cute. I like that. You look like Bob from VeggieTales.
What? The funniest part is it's a slightly darker color than your normal hue. So I think it's nice
about the color you get when you spend about 30 minutes in the sun.
Yeah. 5.
It won't take 30.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah,
it'd take
5.
about 5 to
5.
get Jake pink.
I meant with sunscreen.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bullfrog.
With sunscreen. Bullfrog.
52, something like that. Something good. So there's nothing better in the middle of the show than to have the sound guy say to Jake, "Hey, Jake, say something."
Do a sound check.
After he's been talking for 5 minutes.
No, he's on.
Oh man, we're still. Let's see the.
7 minutes in, and it's all.
Whoa! What was that? Sacco.
Oh, no, he's fine.
Okay,
Oh,
he's fine.
I'm fine.
He's fine. He says he's
okay.
fine. Hey, Tappy Tapperson, you done over there or what? You ready to do this thing?
You know I can talk to people on this? Why didn't you tell me this? This is great. I'm conversing with folks right now.
Oh, boy. Yeah, why don't you converse with the microphone? Let's give that
What's
a
the
shot.
microphone for? Listen, I discovered something new.
I know.
You never told me about this TV. I could actually talk to people on it.
We're trying to get you caught up, and I appreciate that. That you're giving it your fullest effort.
I twerked this week. I meant tweeted. I tweeted.
You
I
tweeted.
tweeted.
You
I
did.
twerked too.
You twerked earlier tonight. You've been tweeting
And
all week.
you remember that.
Yeah, no, it just wouldn't end. That was the problem.
The twerk or the tweeting?
The tweet. The twerk. No. The tweeting ended. 160 characters is all you had. The twerking.
And it was basically just a retweet because I just hit that little arrow button because I know what that does. But I can't speak tweet.
Yes, you can.
No.
No, you do it. You do a really good job of it.
Why? Because my nose looks like a beak?
No.
I don't appreciate this already. Already you're starting with the personal insults.
What?
Wait, what?
How was your week?
Great.
Good.
Next.
Let's get into topics.
We're 6 minutes. Pay attention to the board.
I know,
Okay.
but there's a lot to talk about.
Name one thing.
We
For once we have 4 standby stories.
do have a bunch of standby stories, and we also have all of our regular stories, and then I'm sure a couple will weasel their way in that we don't normally plan on like we usually do. So
You didn't have to look over at Jake when you said weasel.
sorry, Jake. You okay?
I'm fantastic.
Okay, good.
You are fantastic.
How are you doing this week, Jake? Because obviously Clint has so much to say about it.
It was great. What can I say?
How are you this week, Clint? Jake?
I'm doing quite well. It's been a good week. It's the end of my work week, and I'm pretty thrilled to be spending it with you guys.
Well, yeah, there's no other way to spend it, really.
There is a way I could be at home with my lovely wife, but instead I'm here. I could be getting this abuse for free at home. Instead, I'm paying for it double. So.
Well, after we made you buy dinner, we figured we had to do something nice for you.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hardy Fiber Cement Siding is proven to withstand water, pests, and fire better than wood-based siding. And it looks better while doing it. Hardy Siding has been chosen for 10 million homes and counting. See the proof at jameshardy.com.
So, yeah, if everyone remembers Liberal Jake, he's been on the show a couple times. He calls himself Liberal Jake. We proved to him time and again that he's not nearly as liberal as he likes to
Right.
think he is.
When you throw a guy on the spot to invent the name that he's going to go by for the end of time, that's just what I went with, and I'm constantly flogged for it.
You've been liberal Jake to us for quite a while.
Couple years.
Couple years.
On the show last year.
Right.
Right.
Right. And you've been on, 3 or 4 times now?
Yeah.
Political science degree?
Sure.
I think being on this show is kind of like pain, right? Like you naturally forget it. And then you come back and you're reminded
That's me Thursday
that
morning.
it hurts.
Yeah.
Right, which is why there's bourbon.
Right. And then which is why it's going to take you another 3, 4, 5, 6 months before you come back.
Yeah. You think that's short?
No,
yeah.
I think that's about
No, that's about
I'll just move further away.
Before we... No, you won't, because then you can't stumble home after the show and drinking with us.
Just a longer walk.
We'll get you home one way or the other. Or at least as close to home as we possibly can.
And this is pretty much it, right
Yeah.
here.
It's my new home. I heard about rent. It's pretty cheap, so
Yeah, well,
set up shop.
Yeah.
We do what we can. I just, you'd have to occasionally move your cot so we can get to the file cabinets and back. The office manager needs to get
Now,
those,
hang on a
so.
second. Somebody from the chat room just called you out on something, Jake.
Okay.
They said that you're abandoning your wife and that this is not good.
Well,
There's room for her too.
Right now, I disagree with that statement.
Oh, okay.
you're saying it is good that he abandoned her.
Right.
Okay.
Abandon's a strong word. I'm just choosing to have interests outside the home. Just,
Whoa, now,
just
interest not in it.
Wait a minute.
Wait a second.
It's
Hang
a
on.
family show.
Yeah, I don't know where you're going with that right now, and if your wife would appreciate that. Listen, we'll say you were here with us.
Okay. This is the best alibi there could be. Where were you? Well,
Hey, I'll tell you what, folks, for those of you listening, you don't know how often Jake's voice is pre-recorded. And we had to rehearse this bit all week with timing and everything else.
That's why Sacco's been so frustrated with us.
Yeah.
It's taken us a week to get
And
this
actually,
ready,
this
so.
has been 3 weeks in the making, which is why Sacco's been upset. And the crash last week wasn't of new software. It was us actually trying to get Jake's audio spliced in correctly with
Right.
the interactions that we're having.
Yeah, we were thinking of this week last week.
Right.
We planned like that.
Yeah, so anybody that wants to kind of get this done, there's a lot of work involved in trying to cover the tracks.
Script was the hard part, scripting it, making sure our timing was down, all those different things.
Well, basically what we did is we just let Jake kind of go and talk and kind of interject here and there, and we've had to kind of write our script around it, which has taken some time and a lot of trial and error.
We couldn't be that organized if our lives depended on it. When was the last time we ever planned anything more than, 3 days out?
Vegas.
Okay, besides Vegas for Freedom Fest 2014.
Wait a second. You asked me a question, I answered
15.
it. You can't alter the question.
No, I can.
What are you,
it's called a follow-up.
It's a follow-up, yes.
Stop defending him.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then last time you planned something longer than this?
Yep.
Your wedding.
No. I wasn't involved in any of that.
That's a good point.
I told you the story before. My only demand is that it was either after 4 o'clock or before 7 o'clock so I could watch the Red Sox game. Because when we picked the day, I didn't know what time they were playing that day.
I think there was also demand that your shirt not be tucked in.
Yes.
That had to be a theme.
I couldn't be tucked
As
in.
I look at two grown men that still haven't figured out that the long sleeve shirt goes on the outside, not underneath the short sleeve shirt.
Wait a second.
I mean, you guys late for class?
Oh,
You know, or-
Well, some of us don't want to look like we're 50.
okay.
I'm stuck with that.
Who's the youngest looking dude in this room?
Sacco.
Sacco.
That is not true. All right, not true.
You don't think-
You can't have
true.
no.
Second.
Not with that amazing facial hair. All right. You know,
We're
again.
going to tweet a couple pictures.
gonna-
out.
That takes all the fun out of radio. You know.
Well, hang on a second.
Besides, now the script's getting more intricate. That you had You want me to hold up a newspaper, and that'll.
And that was the best part to cut in and respond to. Remember that? Because we were like, how could we Photoshop that in and all those things.
Egg, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were insulting the over 50 crowd, but apparently we were. So there goes that part of our demographic.
And which is, I think, just you, Ag.
No, we just need to offend
we
more,
love- but we
offend
love
more
you.
demographics.
Yeah.
Really offend some people.
We do that
we
a
do
lot
that
on
every
the show.
single week on the
anyway.
show.
Just
Don't
making
give
sure
me
we're hitting
that.
everybody.
Okay.
You
ready to
the
get-
Democrats plenty.
We have
Whoa.
8 seconds. What do you mean am I ready to get going? We have 6 more seconds of
Well, I
General
didn't
Jack
realize he was
History.
going to throw a slam out like that at the end. Lord.
Well,
All right.
respond.
No, I'm not going to dignify that with a
It couldn't be a
statement.
surprise if it's pre-recorded.
I knew he was going to say that too because he
Hence
pre-recorded
the
it.
bit is funny.
Oh, that's what this is?
I'm killing myself over here. All right. This is great. We don't do this for anyone else.
This is true. We put a lot of effort in when you come on, and we appreciate
This is
it.
what effort looks like.
So net
Imagine if we
neutrality.
didn't try. Nice segue.
He's just reading off the new board.
Well, I have to read off the board. What is there to try about it? It's net neutrality. What am I going to lead in and be like, well, I appreciate the fact that you were able to join us because we talk over the internet.
By the way, speaking of internet,
Speaking of internet, tomorrow the FCC
Yes.
Commission is going to take up a vote to decide the fate of net neutrality.
I bet it's not going to be along partisan grounds.
3-2 would be the partisan line if it does.
Well, that was to get the vote going, right?
Right.
What do you think the vote's going to be?
I think it's going to pass. What numbers, I don't know. I think it's going to pass because the FCC wants control of the
Like
internet.
3-2?
Like I said earlier, my only thing is that there might be that one Dem on there who is either thinking of his own political future and knows if he passes it, or maybe has a moment of reality.
You put way too much faith
That's my only
Into the
question right
FCC.
now. I know, and it is the FCC. And one of the, I don't.
It's not going to affect us at all because we don't care.
Really?
Okay, it's not going to affect me at all because so Sacco is just going to have to be quick on the mute button if the FCC passes this regulation.
Yeah, we're going to have to get the 10-second machine. Sacco's going to have to start working on the dump button. We're in a lot of trouble.
So obviously it's already going to cost us money. Thanks.
Everyone in the chat room saying 3-2 it'll pass. Party lines. Yeah, it's probably going to pass. And the biggest thing that they phrase it as, or they're trying to form it as, is it keeps the bigger communication companies from slowing down the internet or speeding it up, depending on who uses what, so they could push different things in different direction. And that's what it's phrased of. But we always talk about bigger picture and what the government does.
What you're hearing is Hardie Fiber Cement Siding living up to its reputation as the siding that helps resist weather damage, no matter what Mother Nature throws its way. James Hardie knows how important a reputation is, especially when you're a home builder. That's why Hardie products withstand the elements better than wood-based siding, with styles to match their strength. Because when home builders work with us, we deliver our best so they can look their best. Protect your reputation with exterior products by James Hardie.
When it actually starts getting a hold of something and it gets its fingers into it, they never just stop. They just never stop on the outside. They just can't stop themselves. It's impossible. And you look at some of the other industries that have been regulated, and you look at cable, prime example, what they've done with cable, and whether you like cable television companies or you don't, the fact is they can charge whatever. They should be able to charge whatever they want for their product. It's their product. If people don't want to buy it, they don't want to buy it. And that's something that's concerning because they've completely destroyed, not destroyed, but they've really hampered a lot of the telecommunication company. And I think this is going to go beyond that as well. I think once they have their hands into it, you have to start worrying about regulation of speech over the internet, which, and not just hate speech or people trying to join ISIS or anything like that, but shows like this, shows not like this, just about anything is my biggest concern, is that they're going to start going after that. Listen, if they start regulating what we can and can't say, if they hold us to FCC rules like terrestrial radio, we're kind of in trouble.
Well, and I predict something.
Yes.
There's going to be a profanity show, like 1 week before the rules take effect.
Oh, the entire show is just going to be profanity.
It's just going to be profanity. We're
it's
not
kind of like that
listeners.
now. It's like we've been building up to that for a long time.
Like that's our big crescendo, right? It's just the profanity-laced show, which all of our conservative listeners will love.
Yeah, we gained so many more conservative listeners that way. Jake, I want to get your take on this because we talked about this a little bit at dinner. What do you feel as a liberal, as you describe yourself, do you feel that net neutrality is a good thing, and why?
Just like anything, it could be a good thing. And that no one has the crystal ball. I can throw all kinds of stupid remarks at you. The analogy that I make for this is we talked about like nutrition labels on food. And realistically, I just want a more informed consumer. And that's something that only the government or only large entities or businesses could choose, but sometimes they need to be compelled to make that information available. At one point, net neutrality had 99% approval. And I think people were fairly informed about what it could be. So that's what we're talking about. I mean, it could be a wonderful thing. It could be a very good thing. And that just depends on what the government, what the FCC particularly chooses to do. There's a slippery slope for anything. Mm-hmm. So I don't...
for freedom, there's not. What's the slippery slope for allowing free speech or free exercise or exchange of thoughts and ideas, regardless of whether we agree with them or not?
And any of the arguments for net neutrality, and let me be specific because I'm not that well informed in it, the current argument for what they're trying to accomplish through net neutrality, has any of it even in any way suggested that they would restrict what is available on the internet? My understanding, it's had nothing to do with content. Content has never been the issue with net neutrality and what they're deciding to take action on. It has everything to do with large companies choosing to block their competition. All right, that's what it comes down to. I'm Comcast. I'm going to block the competition. I don't want Netflix to be able to give the same programming at a lesser rate, so I'm going to throttle back from 7 to 10 when people are watching. All right, that's what it's all about. So when you guys, everyone wants to pull the big handle is saying that the FCC wants going to want to regulate content just like they've done on the airwaves probably for good cause. All right, we don't want.
Yeah, they've already gone down that road. So what's to think they wouldn't go down that road with the net?
Because the
and
internet.
if people don't want to deal with the big companies, they don't have to. You don't have to have cable. You don't have to have internet. You don't have to have any of these things. You don't have to have a driver's license.
Correct.
And I know that we're kind of going out for the here, but you don't have to have those things. If you exercise your personal choice and you don't want to deal with those big companies and whatever those policies are, you don't have to have or engage in that service. That's where the free market figures things out.
Correct, and the free market could figure it out, but people need to be informed to do that. So say I have provider A that's providing me with my free, wonderful, porn-soaked internet. That I just love this internet.
Which you do, and that's fine.
Right.
We celebrate
and I
that.
choose to have provider 2, because it's not providing the internet, that gives me a service through the internet, much like Netflix or Amazon Prime, whatever you want. If I don't have the information at my fingertips, how could I know that I'm receiving the content at the streaming speeds that I'm paying for?
But doesn't that fall on you
to research it as the
to
consumer?
do the research as the consumer?
But also, I'm too busy eating Big Macs.
Then you're
and
too
enjoying,
busy for the internet. Then
right. But what I'm saying is, outside of software assisting me at that exact moment to know at that exact moment at 7:35 on a Thursday night prime time viewing, it's very difficult for me as a consumer to know what that secondary provider is doing to that paid service.
And I see what you're saying, but I don't believe it's the government's job to make sure you're informed. It's not the government's job to ensure that information of that type is available to you. It's the person's job as the consumer to seek that information out, however they have to do so.
I think that's more of a job for like the Better Business Bureau or something of that nature, like an independent company.
Or you call the company and you get the information about the services they offer or whatever
Correct.
it is. It's not the government's job to ensure.
And I'm not saying that the
information
FCC is the answer. The simple argument that I'm laying out there is that let's deal with the issue at hand, which is
the education of people.
No, not necessarily the education of people, but we automatically want to jump to this freedom issue.
Yeah,
it is,
because that's what ends up being the problem long term.
Correct.
I mean, you look at gun rights, and we've talked about this before. And you're a big gun guy for a liberal.
I mostly prefer little guns because they carry more bullets, and I'm able to shoot them more often. But
and there we go, and hence liberal Jake is not a liberal, and we've proved it here again.
But the same thing with average citizens, especially in the state of California, not being able to regularly obtain a CCW or be able to carry their weapon for protection. It started off with what they phrased to be for the good of the people. Oh, we have to limit this because people are getting hurt, blah, 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 blah. It's never really curtailed that, but somehow it keeps getting pushed further and further.
And that's a right specifically guaranteed in the Constitution, as is the First Amendment. And we look how restrictive 2A has gone. And you look at, we had a guy in New Jersey we talked about last week who was a Queen Anne muzzle loader. And that was exactly the type of gun that was foreseen by the founders in 2A. The FCC. FEMA. FEMA controls the FCC, and we just Jason Miller pointed that out to us in the chat room, which is controlled by the executive branch. That's kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah.
So when you say, well, why does everyone pull the big red handle? Because we've been down this road with other avenues. Right. And to be honest, the internet is kind of the last free bastion of free speech in a lot of ways for people to communicate.
Right, so long as it's in the form of a cat meme or things like that.
Right, but even, for 15 years now since it's really been up and coming, it's been the way for people to communicate with each other, to network, to start grassroots movements, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the thing I think the government fears a lot of.
And they should certainly fear it. And me, just simply as a moderately informed consumer, the one thing that is routinely frustrating with the internet is it's a tremendous amount of information, and a lot of it's bad. And that's the difficulty.
But that's why people have to do their research.
I know, and you don't need to jump right on me, okay? We're in agreement about this. I'm just saying that it's a wonderful source of information, but I know that if I go to NBC News or pick up the Wall Street Journal or things like that, I'm not saying it's necessarily perfect information, but there's been an accountability, things like that. That's the same kind of argument for the internet, that if I'm choosing to go with provider A and get service B, so let's just say Comcast and I'm using Netflix, a very common situation, that I know that they've been vetted in a certain way, and that service isn't going to be hindered. Just like I read an article in the Wall Street Journal, a reputable source of information. I know that they print something falsely, that's going to be, there's going to be reparations for that, versus just reading off from some internet webpage that has no accountability. It takes a lot as the consumer.
But the media doesn't really have accountability at this point, does it? Who's really sitting there? Because most people become complicit in what the media does.
And there's a lot of bad information in bookstores. You can find books everywhere, and it's up to the individual consumer to sort through. Let's say a library before we had the internet. It's up to the individual consumer to go to that library, utilize the card catalog system or whatever, and sort through that information in volume.
Which is how Clint still gets a lot of his information.
And hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm just saying.
And I'll tell you, you're going to offend a lot more people in this room about dissing libraries than you realize right now. But I think
the other people in this room can use a computer.
A large amount of information that's available in a house, and granted, or in a structure, and granted, this is the internet. There's a lot of information available, but just as it was your responsibility as a student to vet the information in that public library or school library or whatever, it's your job as a consumer to vet the information that you're seeking on the internet.
Right. I'm in complete agreement. To bring it full circle, my simple point on the argument is that what we're discussing with the FCC attempting to do, a lot of us could be, if it wasn't the FCC and it was an independent media group or an independent reporter group or looking and doing research and providing that information, it's just...
Sounds to me like you just created a company.
Right. A totally awesome company that they'll have no
private sector company that people could subscribe to you.
An internet watchdog group, exactly.
Right?
I'd love to.
Well, they get to it.
That'd be a private,
use the free market system,
but there's a private sector answer for a potential or a perceived problem.
And the answer, like you said earlier when you were talking about all the different, I mean, you look at mainstream media, well, they'll let anyone on and discuss it. Look at what happened with Benghazi, Susan Rice. All five networks said the same thing. It was because of a video. We knew that wasn't true, but they still allowed it. Nobody questioned her on it. Nobody pushed back. So media is not held accountable by any stretch of the imagination.
Ask Brian Williams if he's... I'm just saying. It takes time. It takes time to vet information. And in a 24-hour news cycle, bad information is going to get on the air. Bad information is going to be printed. And that's the world we live in.
Bad information is going to show up on the internet.
Going to be tweeted.
But a lot of good information shows up on the internet that never makes the front page.
Like shrmedia.com.
That's one great site to go to. That is true that oftentimes gets ducked by mainstream media for one reason or another. So, you look at prime example is us, Pundit Press. Pundit Press has a bunch of great stories on it that don't hit mainstream media, that are factual, they're research, there's history, there's knowledge, et cetera, that never gets hit in the mainstream. Why? Because the owners of the mainstream have a tendency to forget what their job is and have a tendency to push agendas, personal or otherwise.
And if they're vetting the information for true or false, they may think something is false and pull information off when it may not necessarily be false. And I'll even do the ridiculous argument of you may have an article on creationism and they believe creationism to be false, so they pull that information off. And I know I'm going to an extreme example there, but who is responsible for vetting that information or for deeming it to be true or false or
and
whatnot?
Who is
it
responsible,
should all be available out there.
Who would be responsible for ensuring that the airwaves stay free, that the internet stays free, that people are allowed to exercise?
It's the people's responsibility.
It's the people's responsibility.
Yes.
Okay, but who's going to physically accomplish that feat?
The FCC, because they are part of our government, and granted, they're not elected, those FCC folks aren't, they're appointed, but they are representative of our government, and their job is not to control or restrict or limit our freedoms.
So isn't that the possibility of this vote, that they could then take a stake in the internet and ensure that it stays
this
free,
vote
it stays
shouldn't
open?
even come up.
Okay.
If you're going to pass a law, it should be passed by Congress.
Right.
If you're going to do something like that,
we don't want those nitwits involved in any of this process.
Well,
sometimes we need
but
a
that's
sharp
our process.
group of
But that's their job.
A sharp group of bureaucrats? Did you just say that?
They exist.
Where?
They're out there. I don't know.
Name one in there who's
You're
sharp.
just hoping now.
Right.
Hope is not a battle strategy.
That's what makes me liberal, Jay.
Hey, wait a second. Hope is a battle strategy, and it's coupled with change by some folks.
We're up against a break. When we come back, we're going to cover Terror Bloc with Liberal Jake and more here on the SHR Media Network. Back in 3.
in a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying calf for the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And on.
And I feel bad
like he
because
hasn't
the chat
stopped
room
ranting. Like the entire break.
The reason
he was ranting.
These two chuckleheads are just smirking and daggering at their keyboards with their little hot fingers, exchanging with the chat rooms. You know, they all just jump on my liberal back. That's okay. We can carry you.
Well, and part of the reason is, you know, and I defended you, I think, once in the chat room where somebody said that you were some sort of mentally deficient, and I said no.
Okay.
I just one of the reasons we like having you on is we like to have the opinion of the other side here.
Let's not call me the other side. Let's just call me a different side.
Okay, of a different side.
I live in a political hexagon. There's no square, no line.
Political circle.
Yeah.
We'll put you in a political circle.
Ooh.
But this is how we talk about it all the time. This is one of the things that the Congress doesn't do well enough.
This is circle, would he be on a political radius?
Ooh, that was really good.
You like that?
No.
I don't know where I pulled that out from. I just Googled circle real quick.
But this sort of back and forth is how problems get solved and how ideas get hashed and stuff like that. So
what are you even talking about?
Why
right now?
Jake is here and why?
Because we like him.
Well, but
because he usually brings
the benefit? Beer. Well, he built an easel for us tonight. So.
He did build an easel for us tonight because Sacco had a fit and destroyed our last whiteboard. Threw it up against the wall, stomped on it.
He rage quit last week.
He did while we were trying to get him back into the cage. He kicked like a mule. It was ridiculous.
What are you doing over there?
Sacco.
I'm testing stuff, man.
Well, you have something unmuted because I can hear it echoing. What are you doing? That's better. Thank you.
And what was perfect about that is he was talking and I didn't hear anything in my headphones. That was the best part.
I think he does this just to mess with us, because half the noises that come through our headphones don't go out over the air. And I really think this is his little cute way of getting even with us. He's like, oh, really, jackass? You're going to say that about me? I'm just going to echo your own voice on a split-second delay in your head so you start stammering your words. There you go. How's that for 5 minutes, huh? Funny guy sitting over there all fat, bald, and funny, huh? Stammer your words a little bit more.
Well, Clint started himself on, heavy psychotropics, I thought he had schizophrenia. Joke's on you.
I do have schizophrenia. What's wrong with that?
I'm a schizophrenic, and so am I. So let's move on to terror block. Speaking of being terror.
Speaking of being schizophrenic,
let's talk ISIS.
Have you seen the ISIS youth?
Oh yes, I have actually. This is completely disgusting.
So Monday, a video came out with about 70 youths, the two Utes.
Did you say youths?
About 70 Utes dressed in camouflage, and they're
Ute. I couldn't let it go at that point.
The two youths dressed in camouflage, rambling on about, I don't know, a bunch of nonsense. And as young as 5 years old is estimated, some of them. And look at, Obama's right. They're just misunderstood.
They just need jobs.
They need...
I love how that we want to grow jobs in faraway lands, but we don't want to do it here. But I digress.
Look, we need to just kind of deal with, some of the issues that they take umbrage with, and everything will be fine, because we haven't been fighting them since the founding of our country.
It's our fault.
It's our fault. Does anybody realize, and I think very few people realize, that it's very reminiscent of the Nazi youth, the Hitler Youth organization?
It's pretty scary.
I mean, the whole way ISIS operates, and I don't remember because I wasn't alive, but I've read on the internet, because we have open source, as well as in libraries, that we swore to never let anything like this happen again. Now, maybe they were talking just about
the Holocaust?
Maybe they were just talking about the National Socialist Party. Like, we would never let another socialist party into power. And then we got Obama.
The type of movement in which it's hell bent on genocide, essentially.
Right. So, yet we're letting this happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Like we as in the world, but specifically us here in America, because we have a president who's so, I don't even want to say out to lunch, impotent.
Now,
I don't mean that in a physiological sense, because I don't know and I don't want to be jammed up for slander.
Well, what do you want from the guy? You want to put on camis and stand next to the King of Jordan and do a bomb run, and then he's masculine and cool and hip, and he...
No, you know what I want him to do? There? I want him to do his stinking job. I want him to actually put... Now, granted, we did give him credit for actually going to Congress and asking for an authorization. Mm-hmm. And we do think that Congress should issue a declaration of war, not just an authorization, against ISIS. Mm-hmm. Just because we refer to
state of ISIS.
ISIL. And why can't we... Where does it say we have to declare war against a particular country?
I'm just asking for clarification.
No,
what you want.
Declare war against the terror group ISIS. Okay. And actually go put boots on the ground and go kick some ass.
Should we done that in 2001? Because we didn't need to declare war then on certain...
We should have.
Okay.
Yeah, we absolutely should have.
We absolutely
we're all on
should
the
have.
same piece of
absolutely.
paper.
Yeah, no, we don't have different standards for Bush or Obama. Right. The president has certain authority to act within a certain amount of time. Obviously, the time frames exceeded that. Congress continued to fund that effort, but I believe Bush absolutely should have gotten a declaration of war for Iraq. And I credited President Obama for going to Congress and asking for the authorization. I think they should authorize it by a declaration of war. And I think that's how you have to defeat them. Why is it okay? And why are we going to say that it's due to economic reasons, or, well, they have, they exploit certain parts of our Western culture. They exploit certain things in order for recruiting. We don't have to address what they're exploiting. There's something called evil, period. The Nazi Party in Nazi Germany was evil. Hitler's group was completely evil, and ISIS, I think, is no different than that. I mean, they burn fellow Muslims alive.
Christians
that don't believe. They behead Christians.
They just captured 125 Christians.
If you're homosexual, they'll throw you off of a building to your death. The way they treat women and so forth. It's yeah, we absolutely need to take action on this. They are directly threatening us. The terrorist group Al-Shabaab is calling for lone wolf attacks on the Mall of America. ISIS has called for lone wolf attacks against law enforcement targets, military targets, emergency responders, and so forth, to conduct lone wolf attacks because of the difficulty in observing them or finding them out, the ease to carry it out, and so forth. Yeah, we're at war. And we're at war here in the homeland as well. We're at war overseas, obviously. They've established a caliphate, essentially. Yeah, I think that evil needs to be stopped.
Trying to take over a portion of Lebanon and call it an emirate. They're trying to spread, and I agree. I think we need to learn a lesson from World War II. When you know something's evil, you get out ahead of it and stop letting it build. And listen, the region they are in is the numbers are staggering of how many people they could influence and how many people.
We're one generation away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's where I weigh in here, because not to you brought it up earlier as far as my degree in political science, things like that. It's important for people to conceptualize this royal they for ISIS and things like that. And how do we stop an evil movement like that? Because that's how it should be referred to, obviously, because it's not a terrorist state. It's not a national state. And so, therefore, you want to declare war against an idea. Yeah. All right? That's what you're really doing.
No, they're a group.
They are a group.
And that's who we're declaring war
against.
But
they do have an area that they operate in without impunity.
Right.
That they've essentially taken over.
There is occupied ground.
Mm-hmm.
But without them, it's just I want people to understand, and I know your listeners are highly informed, but just the logistical quagmire that is engaging against this kind of a group. Because the ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to change the methodology, because we can kill them. No one can push a little button and have all these people that have this mindset, no longer exist on the earth. And even if we have
they can, but we just turn the whole region into glass in the process.
Right. A lot of people live there. A lot of people that deserve to live and deserve to have hatred for America. That's freedom. Hating us is freedom.
It is.
And they should be entitled to it.
They can hate us, just not try to kill us and not behead children and not behead,
And
look, in World War II, we bombed cities.
Haram, they're part of the same.
The Nazis occupied those cities, and that's how you win the war. And I'm not advocating the killing of innocent, women and children and so forth, but at what point do we have to protect
because we've
ourselves
in,
and Israel?
Everyone loves my oxymorons, but we engage in civilized modern warfare, which is the Nazis, they blitzed and bombed London, and we did the same. And
we didn't bomb London.
Everyone knows that we didn't bomb London.
Well, then why did you just say we bombed
That's
London?
Not what I said.
You said we did the same thing.
Socko, give me a playback. But what I'm saying
is, this whole thing's recorded.
We've engaged in modern warfare, which is to say that we're not going to intentionally level villages because we believe that there is a possibility that there could be an enemy combatant present in that village. That's not what the U.S. stands for. Okay, we want freedom of life and liberty and pursuit of happiness in the entire world. That's what we stand
No.
behind.
See, but I disagree. I don't necessarily care about the entire world per se. I care about here.
Right.
And I'm not saying that we don't need to be cognizant of that, but I'm also saying that at some point, if we are going to wage a war, we need to actually wage a war.
Absolutely, and just because that type of war hasn't not been fought before does not mean that we don't have the ability to fight that type of war.
We've fought that type. We've been fighting that type of war for a decade.
Those have been conflicts, and you can't. That is not a true war. Those are conflicts. They're very isolated, and granted, war should have been declared. But if you want to fight this type of war where you're going in, look, if there is a village that terrorists have fortified, I don't care if it's a mosque or a school, it's sad, it's unfortunate, but we cannot have our soldiers and our people here in the homeland endangered because those shot callers are, calling for lone wolf attacks, whatever, coordinated certain things here, putting out Inspire magazine, teaching people how to make whatever devices they want to make to attack us here at home. I'm sorry, I'm not saying, we should go target innocent folks, but if that village is housing those people and there are some
how far can
some casualties? I mean, that's
how far do you
let
war?
That
I'm not
go
saying
before
it's enough that you have to, in your opinion, and let's use Hezbollah in Israel. How far do they have to go to kill people before it's enough to justify it, in your opinion?
Right. Well, and that's why I want to be clear. Someone like, from my point of view, I am completely in favor of military action. I am completely in favor of all kinds of aggressive, combative, literally boots on the grounds, and whatever kind of techniques. I have tremendous faith in my government and in its military and its ability to execute a threat, figuratively and literally. The issue that I have, that looking at the bigger concept, is we usually, let's stay on a very finite issue, Mall of America. ISIL, whether it's through the internet or through the distribution of leaflets or audio information for the illiterate, that they're calling upon this kind of attack, all right? Whether they're doing it over there where they're asking people to target foreigners, or they're doing it here where they're asking people of similar mindset to make an attack against the Mall of America. Having a military invasion of a certain location isn't going to stop that idea, all right? So we're going to be under constant threat because that idea is out there. So I'm having a difficult time explaining myself, where you have this process in place, and that's where they have the advantage, because their terror tactic, or their tactic of using soldiers, for every one of us that dies, that's a victory. We can kill thousands of them, but if they kill one Minnesotan in the Mall of America, then they've got that capital on us. So there's no amount of Green Berets and Army Rangers and that in the hills of any of their occupied territory that will be able to combat the idea of them trying to motivate American citizen that has similar ideal taking action, whether it's an AK on the White House lawn or in the Mall of America.
So here's the difference. You cannot kill an idea.
Correct.
Or an ideal, but you can kill those willing to carry it out.
Right.
Right?
So are you going to do Thought Patrol 1984? I'm talking about U.S. citizens that might just wake up one day and decide, yeah, I believe in the cause and I'm going to take action.
They can, and then you know what? When they start taking action, that person gets killed. Right? Because once they start that action, you're going to have law enforcement respond,
Absolutely.
Whatever forces respond, and that person's going to get killed. You can't kill the idea of violence. You can't carry out the person that has an idea of committing whatever crime. Right? It's not against the law to have an idea to commit a crime. But once that's put into action, now you can take action. Right? Law enforcement can respond to somebody once they have put that into motion. Not against the law to think about burglarizing a house, which I think is actually an infraction or a misdemeanor now in California. I don't know which. I think it's almost legal.
I think it's just like a $5 fine.
Right,
now.
so you're not going to get rid of the idea. You're absolutely right. But what you can do is those that have demonstrated the intent and the ability to carry that out, you can kill them and their support structure. And if you have lone wolves attack pop up here in the United States, in Minnesota or wherever else, you kill them.
Or the armed citizens can.
Or the armed citizens can kill them because it's a national security issue.
And I thought we were still doing all those things. Of course, I don't know if Homeland Security still has a budget.
But we're not overseas. We have no boots on the ground right now fighting ISIS. Right? We don't have a dedicated military force in terms of troops over there to fight and engage on the ground. And you have to have that. You can't do it by airstrikes alone.
Okay.
And that's where the true waging of a war comes into play. Look, I know a lot of people in this country do not have a stomach to send more boots over into the Middle East. But this is a major threat. And I mean, not only to France and our Western allies over in Europe and in the region, but to us here at home. And if us putting boots on the ground is able to take out their upper echelon, take out their troops, destroy their morale, and kill them there, you don't think it would have any effect on those willing to carry out attacks here? I think it would affect some. And then if they do pop up and carry out attacks here, well, then we address that when that happens.
Right,
but absolutely it starts over there in destroying that caliphate that they've established.
I'm just trying to point out the ownership of the same chain of logic that we had earlier with the FCC debate, where we talk about how if the FCC votes to take a look at how the Internet is presented, then that can result in the throttling of freedoms or control of how the Internet is. Much like if we choose to send soldiers and deeply embed ourselves in a ground war, then to say that, if that causes a dramatic increase of terror attacks at home in direct response to that, because we can all agree that's one of the reasons they hate us, right?
So we don't take action because we're
afraid?
I'm
not saying that. But what I'm saying is that we have to discuss the whole argument.
I would argue that those attacks are coming one way or the other.
Absolutely. We've been fighting terrorism since the founding of our country. We've talked about it here before. The pirates of Tripoli were Muslim. They attacked us when we no longer were under the protection of the British Navy when we fought our revolution because we were Westerners. Jefferson and Adams asked the Pasha when they met him in London why they attack and enslave us. We've done nothing to them, and they said it's written in their book, the Quran, in order to attack and enslave those that don't believe that way, which is why Jefferson bought a Quran in the first place, because he wanted to understand what the enemy was thinking. Not like a lot of the left likes to point out that, he was so tolerant. I mean, he was very tolerant, but that's what started his own research into the Muslim faith. So we've literally been fighting them since the founding of our country. We paid tribute to them to stop attacking us under Washington and Adams because we were a brand new country and we didn't have a navy to build up and go kill them. Jefferson finally had enough, stopped paying tribute, and sent the Marines to Tripoli, which is when they finally started. So we've been fighting this literally since the beginning. So this isn't something like if we go over there and send troops now and kill them that all of a sudden they're going to be more pissed off at us. And start
we
doing
began
more
this
things
conversation though, where you said that you've identified it as "quote unquote" evil, right? And
I believe it is.
And I'm not going to negotiate that point. I'm just going to be in 100% agreement. But there's lots and lots and lots of other evil out there in this world. Whether you want to point to an easy place like Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Are we just upset at ISIL because they have better Twitter feed and they have more social media out there calling for attacks?
No,
on
and
the
we've
US?
talked about
But that's
this
why we
before.
need
You
the
have Boko
FCC to
Haram.
regulate this stuff.
One at a time.
No, I'm just
One
kidding.
time.
You have Boko Haram that's wiping out, but Boko Haram is very, very close with Al Qaeda and ISIS. They're all starting to integrate, as well as the one in Somalia there who called for the attack on the Mall of America, Al Shabaab.
Al-Shabaab. That's a great restaurant.
They're
They do like kebabs and stuff.
Great naan.
Yeah.
They have great naan. But they're starting to consolidate because even though they may not be wearing the same uniform, if you will, they work under a lot of the same principles. They train in a lot of the same places. They communicate regularly. I agree, and I did a whole segment a couple weeks ago. No, it was actually when you were out.
Oh, you?
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, Goose.
About how Boko Haram is just flying under the radar, and we as a nation are not paying attention to it. Meanwhile, they're massacring thousands of people a week in Africa, and I agree that something does need to be done about that as well. So I think that you do need to have an open front on that, and you do need to go after it, and that's when you need to engage allies and get allies involved. And yeah, we're all about allies in the Middle East for ISIS, but not much is going on with Africa, assisting with them. Just like when we tried to go into Somalia, we did it half-heartedly, and it came back to bite us on the ass.
So what's the bigger threat to us? Is it ISIS, or is it the groups in Africa?
Again, I'm not dictating military policy. I'm just trying to have a logical chain of thought discussion on: are we targeting evil, or are we targeting immediate threats to us?
No.
Because
Well,
it's two separate things.
so ISIS is not only evil, but they also pose an immediate threat to
Correct.
us, and those two things in combination, I think, necessitate harsh action and
that's
direct
why
response.
I'm just trying to focus in the laser beam of who we're targeting. Are we targeting people that present a clear threat to us, and that's why we're taking immediate action?
I would say yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like 9/11 was a no-brainer
Right.
because of the immediate action that we took.
Mhm.
And so with the ISIS threat, we see them drawing, whether it's American citizens or foreign nationals, and trying to pit them against us and creating a logical argument for why, death to infidels, death to America, things of that nature. And they can make a compelling argument. Right? So I'm fine with targeting that threat because it presents a clear threat to ourselves. But just to say that we're targeting evil in the world...
I didn't say that. I said this particular group is evil.
Correct.
I didn't say we're just combating evil in the world, but this type of evil, and it does pose a direct threat, it does need to be addressed.
And for me, I don't need the threat to be evil. If it's just simply a threat to my way of life, then I'm fine with engaging it.
And I'm not disagreeing
headstrong.
with that. I'm just saying this group poses that. In addition to that, I believe them. They're very evil in this case. And I think we have a president that is weak. And I don't think he has a realistic grasp or understanding of what the problem is.
I think he has a grasp of what the problem is. I think he has a difficult time with engaging, not knowing what the end game is.
You think he really understands what motivates and drives them?
Well, lots of people on your side of the circle love to say that he is one of them. I mean, if I listen to the
Not
chuckleheads
lots
on
of
Fox,
people.
No, hang
on
on,
Fox News, on one minute they tell us that he's a Muslim, and then the next minute is they're telling me he needs to be more like the Muslim king of Jordan. And I think any logical.
If he is Muslim, I don't think that's necessarily I mean, it's.
I'm just saying that we very selectively.
If he was Muslim, I wish he'd be more like the King of Jordan, because at least then you can respect him.
The guy can't win. I'm just saying that the guy can't win.
You're right, because he has no strategy.
He can't win because he's not going to put troops in there, Jake. And thank you for making our point.
I have a question from the chat room for you from Ron. What is your stance on Israel? Do you think...
Holy mother!
Well, you went down
Hang
this
on a
road.
second.
I didn't go down this road. I feel like I should be wearing a blindfold and a cigarette. What's my stance on Israel?
A blindfold and a cigarette.
I believe the region's very hot and there's very little water, and they're all grumpy about it. I believe that the state of Israel does exist, and it's not for U.S. policy to dictate whether that nation should or should not exist.
What's your opinion about do they exist? Do they have the right to exist the way they are, or do their borders need to change? In other words, does Israel have the right to exist? Yes. You answer that. Does it have the right to exist?
Let me clarify.
The way it is
I
today?
believe the people of Israel have a right to exist and live,
but not in their own country.
And that's not what I'm saying either. I'm scaling it wider as far as where they choose to draw those ancient borders. Everyone has a logical definition of what the border is and why it should be there. It's just an argument of when it was established. I don't have the answer there. I have fundamental problems with how Israel has addressed that threat and how they violated. Yeah. I'm just.
Go ahead.
Chat room explodes.
Chat rooms explode. 3, 2, 1. No, go ahead.
Well, just like we harped on it before, war is a very difficult, ugly thing, and so.
Are you a two-stater? Do you believe? No, not Jesus. We're talking about Israel. They're Jewish. They thought he was just a carpenter. Do you think that Israel and Palestine should be two separate states? Yes or no?
That's not a yes or no question.
No, it is.
It is. Should Palestine have its own state and Israel have its own state, or not?
I believe it is possible.
Listen, Obama. Yes or no? Do you believe in a two-state solution?
It's still Jake.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
I have not given an ounce of thought to that. One, because I don't think my red phone's going to ring and someone's going to ask me to drop that strategy.
But you don't know that. Obama's looking for all the friends he can get right now.
Your red phone just rang. Bob was on the other line calling.
And I think we could learn a tremendous amount from the English and when they drew the lines that exist in the Middle East and things like that, that you have century-old people that have occupied certain spaces and been migratory in nature, and to draw lines and say, you live here and you live there, it's not an organic process. We as U.S. citizens, we kicked out a couple small red people and defeated them because they didn't have firearms. And then we drew our own lines.
No, we did not do that as U.S. citizens. The Spanish did a lot of that before we were a country.
But what I'm
saying, no. Don't blame us for that.
I'm not blaming anybody. What I'm saying is that you can't apply a technique, a mindset, or whatever language you want to use that worked for unoccupied territory that's only a couple of hundred years occupied by modern civilized man, and apply that to century-old people.
That we wouldn't have any countries, right? Because haven't most country borders changed due to war and due to conquest?
Of course they have.
Okay.
So I'm just still waiting for it to shake out.
When the borders were set after World War II in Israel, should they have changed after that? After the world essentially as a whole agreed, never mind the fact that they were attacked within, 6 days of being declared their own state.
Right.
Do you believe that those borders should never have been drawn up that way?
I don't pretend
I asked
to be
a yes or no question, and then you went in, so I have to ask.
But I can't pretend to be well enough educated on the specific issue of the borders of Israel post Second World War.
Should the Palestinians have their own state?
When you talk about a state, you talk about
should they have their own country? Should they be the country of Palestine?
In that formulation, probably not.
Okay.
The issue is that they are a regional group of people.
So should they live in peace within the borders of Israel?
I think that's entirely a solution, yes.
Okay, so you would favor it's all Israel and the Palestinian people should live there.
All right? Because if you want...
Okay, so look, you either... There can either be the country of Palestine and the country of Israel, or the country of Israel. But if you don't want to go that way, does that mean then Israel should not exist anymore and it should all be Palestine? There's only three ways that this ends. There's only three ways that this ends. Which one do you pick?
Running out the door might be one of them right now, because that was just... You're brutal sometimes, dude.
Me?
Yes.
I painted three logical solutions to the problem.
We
Those are the only three.
Are any of them the final solution?
No, none of them are the final solution.
You want a lifeline?
We are up against a break. That was fun.
No, it wasn't. I hope I answered Ron's question.
I don't know.
And just a reminder to our audience, this is the pain that we were talking about that Jake remembers for a few months and then it kind of goes away.
When we come back, the fight to fund the DHS continues. All that and more here on the Sackheads Radio Show on the SHR Media Network. Back in 3.
I'm Jason Miller. Coming up on Thursday's Evan Miller Report, I'll be interviewing Project Veritas's James O'Keefe regarding his recent expose of Al Sharpton exploiting the families of Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, and Michael Brown for his own financial gain. That's the Evan Miller Report, tomorrow at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, right here on SHRmedia.com. Now back to the Sackheads Radio Show, here on the SHR Media Networks.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean,
Dude, I'm not saying cough was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint,
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking, drinking, drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border to coordination, we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here's Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And we're back.
Hang on a second. So I have to paint this picture. So Jake, literally, he's sitting in the chair, and after that segment, he slowly pushes the microphone away from his face, and he has this 1,000-yard glazed stare on his face. He slowly removes his headphones, and they just drop from his hands, like he didn't have the wherewithal. He reaches over to the cabinet and grabs the bottle of bourbon.
The emergency bourbon.
He uncaps his what used to be soda, cola.
Water.
And it's now just ice, and he fills the rest. I mean, we had like half a pint. And he pours the rest of it, and he recaps it without blinking, I think. Caps up and starts sucking on the straw, like a lot. And then Sacco goes over, picks up his headphones and puts them on Jake's head and moves the microphone back into position. And Jake was like, I don't know what happened.
This is a tough room to be in. I'm not going to lie.
This is a great room to be in right now.
And poor Jake is taking the abuse from every angle, and it's so much in the Twitter.
We have 5 in here.
So much in our chat room at shrmedia.com that Sacco put up a separate screen and enlarged it just so Jake could take a look at it while we're going.
Well,
yes.
What we really need.
We also have a mystery guest in studio that we're not going to identify.
No, I know. No. I know. It's too bad because there's opinions.
Well, all I need to do is, now that I can see the message boards here, I guess we need to get Golf Dogs on the line because he has all the answers. His particular comments is libs don't answer questions and things like that.
I think, you know what, that's a challenge from liberal Jake directly to Golf Dogs to call in and to engage in a one-on-one conversation with him. And I will put down the headphones and the microphone, and I will just listen to the conversation without interjecting.
Well, no, Golf Dogs doesn't want a conversation. He wants answers. So if he were to say Coke or Pepsi, Coors Light or Bud Light...
Listen, you can't handle the truth.
All right, well, I'm so glad we're getting along tonight. Let's go on to the DHS, and the fight to fund the DHS continues. So... How do we even...
I want to keep talking about Israel.
No!
Israel is not on the board. It is not on my easel.
Hang on a second. Fortunately, this is a dry erase board. And since I have the power of the board, it's specifically listed in my contract. 9 o'clock is about to say Israel Part 2.
Okay.
And it's your segment, Jake.
Oh, good. This is no exaggeration. This is not I'll get my Palestinian friend and my Israeli friend that agree on a great many things, and I'll let them have the debate. Because it's they should be able to dictate how they live in their own country.
Hang on a second. I have a question for you in the chat room. From Ag. You are now dude. You're no longer liberal Jake. Should Israel have net neutrality?
Clearly.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So Golf, you got a direct answer. And Ag, the answer was yes. Yeah, but Golf got a direct answer.
This is true.
Right?
This is what I want from the chat room. Golf Dog, I want lightning round. We're going to do like 1 minute liberal Jake lightning round. Nothing but straight talk, nothing but straight answers, all right? Just as long as I get through this straight bourbon, we'll be ready to go, and I will answer them with short, easy to understand remarks that you guys can comprehend.
So you will say yes or no?
I don't want to go to yes or no because that narrows down the question.
Well, no, you have to do yes or no.
No, it could be one or the
should Israel
other.
and Palestine both exist as two separate countries? This is not lightning round, Jake.
Then
You're violating your
I would
own
say
rules.
no, because they don't need to exist as separate countries. They just
Okay,
need
so
to.
they should all be
have the right.
Palestine.
No, the people have the right to exist. See, that's why I don't want to go in yes or no.
So you're for borderless countries?
I didn't say that either.
So Americans should exist, and we should
With
open
Mexico.
the borders with Mexico and Canada.
Not Canada. I don't trust them. They wear too much denim.
Too much
And
they say a boot.
They hold the market on maple syrup, and you just can't
Have
trust
you
those
seen the
people.
YouTube video for
Canadian
Sniper?
I'm really sorry, Moose. Oh no. Who's on the line right now? Hello, caller. You're on the air. Only for another 3, 2, 1. Somebody was there, but they're not talking, so we'll go back to them. Cut it.
Call in again if you're having audio problems.
Oh, wait.
Hey, whoa. Hello?
Hello?
Nope.
Yeah, I hear him.
Miller?
Ag, you're just on a tremendous delay. How are you, buddy?
Hello?
Nope.
Hello?
Yes, there's
Hello?
a bad line, Sacco. Cut it. It's just, there's like a 30-second delay,
Hello?
I think.
Hello? Hello? Anybody
Hello?
home? Clint?
Yes, Clint is here. This is Clint.
No, it's something was messed up with the audio. If it was you, call back
Sacco,
in.
get on it. Hey, no, that was an audio issue, clearly. Oh, it wasn't?
Not on our
okay,
end.
Okay.
Something was, everything was working on
I
our
apologize, Sacco.
Okay.
No, let's try and answer it.
Let's try it again.
If not, we'll call them back if you get a callback number.
Yeah. You get a callback
Did
number?
it show up?
Are
Hello?
you on?
Hello, do we have you?
We have you
have
now.
you.
Do I have the sackheads?
Oh,
Well,
yes.
Yeah, you have the sackheads.
You can
Apparently
hear me, I
not.
can't hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah, just say your question real quick and we'll move on. Nope.
I still can't hear you.
Nope. Yep. Just cut it. Just go ahead. We'll keep moving
Excellent
on.
radio.
What did you do, Jake? I'm pretty sure you did something because you don't want to take calls. What are you up to?
That's right.
You know what? You and your
I wonder if
folks that just want to control us.
I wonder if the government's already passed net neutrality. And
Hold
this
on,
is
let me go
what's
check
going
for
on.
black helicopter.
Was that Hans Gruber? Why's it got to be the black helicopter?
Oh, man. I think it was Jason, for whatever reason. He wasn't hearing us, but we could hear him. But we do have to move on. We have to talk about DHS. We have to talk about...
Well, then talk about it.
McConnell's plan. All of a sudden, McConnell wants to make a plan where he is slipping in the funding for Homeland Security as part of the agreement to reverse Obama's immigration executive action. Obviously, a lot of conservatives are really upset about this because they're just the fact that he's kind of using this to leverage, if you will.
He's not doing his job.
Agreed.
The House did their job.
Agreed. He didn't put their bill to a vote, essentially, and now here we are. Where do we go from here? Is it going to? Why couldn't he just put forth the bill that was sent to him and pass it or fail it? If it fails, it fails, and we've talked about it before. But this is what happens when you have people who are, in my opinion, just trying to not play God, but trying to slip in one of their own little things to try to sully the deal, if you will.
Well, they wanted to strip it out, right?
Right.
And just pass it as a standalone bill.
Right. And what's the problem with that, in your opinion?
The House passed a bill as is, and the Senate should either vote it up or
where is
not.
McConnell coming from to go into this and kind of adding this in? And Jake, I don't know how much you know about this right now, but
I'm going to way out of this one.
Okay. Just keep sucking on the straw, buddy.
Yeah. I'm going to go to my happy place for a minute.
But, you know, when we came
Mitch
out...
McConnell's not invited to my happy place. That droopy dog can go...
When we came out in November, we talked about how one of the things that the Republicans need to do is legislate. Now, you had the House pass a bill. It went over to the Senate. And this is the thing that the Republicans just don't seem to get when it comes to stuff like this. This is why people are afraid to vote for them, because you have a jackass like McConnell that won't put the bill through. And this is the same thing we accused Harry Reid of time and again. Bunch of bills on your desk that were passed by the House, ready to go. You could have put him out to vote, and he didn't. He had to get his own little slant on it and move things around, and that's not your job. Is McConnell, in your opinion, going
a douchebag? Yes.
Okay, well, that really sums that right up, doesn't it? I don't understand the thought process behind this.
He's trying to get something passed.
Right.
Because he doesn't want it to stall. He doesn't have the votes to pass it, so rather than just have it turned down, he wants to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with this approach.
I don't agree with this approach
I think
either.
Send it to the vote, let it fail, and okay,
and then you
now
send
what?
it, and then you go back to Plan A, and
right? Pass something else, and then
see
send
if
that
it goes
to the
through.
House.
And
right.
this is the problem. We talk about nothing getting done in Washington, And this isn't just a right problem or a left problem. This is Congress's problem in general. There's too much small behind-the-scene games going on, and we got to do this and we got to do that. No, that's not your job. Your job is, here is Objective A. The House passes a bill that they believe meets to beat Objective A, and then it goes to the Senate, and the Senate either passes it or fails it. And that's essentially how it works. It can't be any more simple than that.
Here's the problem. Let's say they do strip that out and they pass just a straight-up funding bill for DHS, and it goes back to the House. I don't think Boehner has the votes with the conservatives in the House to get that by. He'd have to have some Democratic votes on that. And look, I like his response, and I'm not a huge fan of his, but I like his response in that, hey, I'm waiting for the Senate Act. The House has done their job.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely correct. The House, for once, has done their job.
It's weird to say, but they have. And now the Senate...
And look, hold those Dems accountable. People do not like the immigration actions that Obama has taken. The country is against that. A lot of the country is against that. The majority of the country is. So let the Dems stand for their vote. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass, and then hold them accountable on that record.
And that's what we've talked about before. Sometimes you have to try to put these votes through just to hold people accountable for their record. And you can then identify who said no, who said yes, et cetera, and go for there. And I think that's something that needs to get done with this. It wasn't done with this. And I think McConnell is doing exactly what we were afraid Mitch McConnell is going to do. Is he's playing, big time politics with a small time Congress, if you will. This should be streamlined. This should be already voted on and either decided or not, just like they did with Keystone. Put Keystone right through. We knew what the bill was. It went through the House. It went right through the Senate. It went to the desk, and it got vetoed.
Now I'm curious to see if they're going to be able to muster the votes to override that veto.
I think they will.
But so DHS Secretary Johnson said something earlier today, and he said, this is crunch time. The clock is ticking. We're running out of money. I have a response to Johnson.
BS?
No.
Okay. Until it gets going. So that's one of those things to me that they once again they harp on this. And we've seen this with shutdowns too. Oh, they're going to shut down the government. They're going to shut down the government. I'd love to shut down half the government. I think half the government needs to be shut down. And it's definitely one of those things that they need to be more honest about the outcome if we don't pass the DHS funding bill. It's not like they're doing much on the southern border anyhow, and it's not like the Canadians are knocking down the door to get in. So, but still, the simple fact of the matter is not much is going to change if they don't pass the DHS funding. It will get passed eventually.
Maybe.
It will. It may not be passed the way the Democrats want it, but I think it'll be passed eventually. And then it already goes to the president's desk, and it puts him on record as to whether or not he approves or denies it. So, I think that McConnell is a jackass for doing this. I think it's an obstructionist type move.
It's weak.
It's very, very weak.
Which we knew he would be.
Well,
before he took over the position. Is that all you got?
That's all I got.
Are you kidding me with that?
Well, yeah.
Let's get back to Israel.
Yeah, now that we're back on the air,
so
in the dead space, I answered all the
questions.
Look,
there was a great question. Should the area like in Gaza, if they put a Starbucks, should that be like the Dreamer Zone?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that for me?
I think it was for you. And Netanyahu got an invitation to meet behind closed doors with just some Democrats in Congress.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, no.
Yeah, and I'm actually
turned him down.
I'm glad he did to a point because there was absolutely no support from them at all.
A lot of them walked out.
Yes,
or they're
threatening to walk out when he shows
and
up
not
next
even
month.
listen to him.
Yeah.
So wait a second. No, if you want to hear me, you hear me on the floor.
Right. Don't try to get to me beforehand and say, well, can you not do this or can you do this? No, blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah.
I mean, your own people don't all support us because liberal Jake won't even say that he thinks we should exist in the country. I think that may have been something I'm fact-checking this. I think that's something that
Netanyahu said on Twitter. Yeah,
have said on Twitter.
He
within the
tweeted
last
it to us
30
maybe
seconds, but I don't know. I'm confirming this right now. We're attempting to shore this up. So Jake may have single-handedly affected negotiations and dialogue with Israel.
Well, I think this is part of the not Jake is not part of it, but I think this is part of the problem that the Dems have a lot of times is they think everything is a backroom deal. And I think Netanyahu's like, no, I'm not here to wait with you backstage. I'm here to give her speech, tell you exactly where we're at, and move on.
Yep, be upfront with everything.
Yeah, there's no partisan issue here for me. There's none of that stuff. I don't care if you want to bring somebody in who wants to build a blah, blah, blah. I am here because I was asked to present a presentation about Iran's nuclear program and where it's going, and I am going to do just that. So, he kind of snubbed his nose to the Democrats, and that's kind of their own fault, because if half of them didn't threaten to walk out, maybe he would have had a conversation with them.
Maybe in private after the speech if they listened, right?
He would have been a lot more receptive.
I don't blame him for wanting to walk out.
I don't blame
for
him.
not showing up at all. Then what are we talking about this for?
Jake?
No, hang on. As Jake takes another pull of his bourbon.
Oh, and I know we're all fans of the federal government. I know nobody's perfect. However, there is one scumbag I want to talk about. State Department official. No, he's a scumbag. Was arrested today, I believe it was, today or yesterday, for solicitation of sex from a minor. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a government official or a hobo. Either way, I think you should do 45,000 years in prison for this sort of action. This guy particularly, and I forget his name, but he wasn't just like a little State Department paper pusher. He was fairly high up, did a lot of anti-terrorism programs, had a lot of control and information, and was arrested locally by a sting operation for soliciting sex from a minor. It's frightening to me to think, and time and again I've said this, to think that you can rise to that level in the federal government and have something like that. And, we say it all the time that especially with pedophiles and stuff like that, and the information's out there on the internet if you want to find it, usually when they're caught, it's not the first time they've done it. Usually they get caught with stuff like this because they've become comfortable doing it and they're not as protective or they're not as cautious.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's probably not the first time he's done something. I'm guessing. We don't know.
I'm guessing too.
But I'm guessing it's probably not the first
based
time.
on information that you can find and common practices, it shows that this is usually not the first time they get caught. It's just frightening on top of absolutely disgusting. And it's amazing to me that when it comes to like the director of the CIA, they can find out that guy's having an affair, but this high-level State Department official can be soliciting.
Well, they did find out.
Well,
he got arrested
by local police department. It had nothing to do with the state or federal government that did it. It was a local cop that did it.
You mean the FBI didn't crack this case?
The FBI hasn't cracked anything but eggs in 20 years. But it's funny that when you are being politically assassinated, how quickly things can be brought out about what you do in your own personal life by the feds and put to the forefront. But when you work for the machine, if you will, and he's been a long-time State Department guy, they don't pay attention to what you're doing. And he's got all the high-end clearances. I can't remember his name. I had it up here somewhere.
So he's going to be able to find kids anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the danger. He's got high-end clearances. He will know where kids are and what they're doing, and that's the problem. Can he use satellites to spy on kids? Can he fly drones over schools?
I don't know if he had that much ability.
Okay.
But just the fact that he has very, very high classified passes, and he's not monitored, And
he will be monitored.
Well,
soon,
he will be now.
Potentially. I think he may be monitored coming up. That is a distinct possibility. He may get a membership into that club. If he's found guilty.
Go ahead.
Have you seen the Iranians were doing military exercises?
Oh, really?
And they did the
faux
the mock-up of the American aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
And they attacked it with bow and arrows and
paper airplanes.
Paper airplanes. They flew it over. And
They actually put a flaming bag of dog poop on the back door and rang the doorbell. So there's a lot to be nervous
they
about.
toilet papered it, trying to show how awesome they were.
Graffitied.
Graffitied.
They locked the keys inside.
And you know it was real because it was like wood or something, and it had no
Cardboard.
airplanes. Yeah, it had no airplanes flying off
No
of it,
defense system
shooting bombs
whatsoever.
back at them. So, yeah, hey, you guys
nailed it.
You guys nailed it.
So
You're
they-
awesome.
They ride up in a whole bunch of fishing boats.
Right, rowboats.
Rowboats
We
with
think
sticks
there may
and
have been a
dynamite.
kayak in there.
And
yeah.
you know, they tout this. The funniest part is the Iranians tout this as like some sort of major victory and strength of power. And, you know, we could do this anytime we want. If the Americans want to come
attack cardboard? Yeah.
If the Americans
Go
want
for
to come
it.
here and die in the Straits of Hormuz, so be it. And the spokesman for the Navy in the region was like, essentially, yeah, that was cute. Like, his response was, yeah, there was no defenses on that, and they're really not doing much with it. But it was just, it kills me, and I know that there are things to worry about with Iran.
You know
but
what my response would be?
What?
I'd fly one airplane. Hear me out on this.
Okay.
You fly one airplane, not with a real bomb, but just the shell, right? And you have a nice message on it. Like, that was cute with, like, inside.
Well, you do like in World
Right.
War II when the Germans were building all those tanks out of wood, and the Americans legitimately dropped wooden bombs on those little fake brigades to let them know that it wasn't working. That actually happened in World War II.
So that's what I mean. We do something like that, right?
Yes.
Some message or something, and just drop it right on.
Or just leaflets, like 1 million leaflets over the attacks, just saying you guys suck. Just
right. But in Arabic.
And yes, in Arab, and then an application obviously for a job because that's
Because we
another
want to
region
win hearts and minds.
Right, they need jobs as well over there.
And then they'd stop hating us, and maybe they wouldn't want to attack our wooden mock-up carriers.
Speaking of Iran, though,
you did not. You did not.
I waddled quickly.
Okay.
Apparently, there's an underground nuclear facility that was recently located over in Iran, and a little bit concerning that.
No, that's not true because they don't have a weapons program.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, that's what they said.
Well, it's just for electricity. That's the only reason that they want to do it.
And that's why they have to put it underground with thick steel walls and radiation precautions and everything else. But it's fine.
Yeah, but Netanyahu doesn't know what he's talking about next month, so I guess we could just all. Hey, listen, we have no reason to do anything but trust the Iranians and their good
And I don't even know
intentions.
why you're bringing this up right now. I really don't. I mean, you're just kind of being absurd. I'm just not
I'm
even
so
sure
sorry.
where you're going with that. The quality of the show just went down like about 7 notches.
Well, I'm sorry if we don't have liberal Jake yelling at our listeners in the chat room.
I know. I'm a little disappointed. Jake, are you drunk enough yet to start talking?
Yes.
Well, perfect, because we come back.
When we come back from
welfare.
break, we're talking welfare.
All right, I'm still waiting for lightning round.
We need to get some callers. I think you scared them off.
Yes. I'm
They
trying
heard
to
you were
guess now.
slugging bourbon, and they decided that they didn't want to get into the fight. So.
They don't know who Bourbon is, but man,
But he's taking a
they
beating
didn't want
tonight.
to be part of it.
We're back at 3, California and the Welfare Queen Law here on the Sackheads Radio Show on the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Coming up on Thursday's Evan Miller Report, I'll be interviewing Project Veritas's James O'Keefe regarding his recent expose of Al Sharpton exploiting the families of Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, and Michael Brown for his own financial gain. That's the Evan Miller Report, tomorrow at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, right here on SHRmedia.com. Now back to the Sackheads Radio Show, here on the SHR Media Networks.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean,
Dude, I'm not saying calf was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint,
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to the Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
A couple questions out of the chat room. Ken wants to know if the bourbon that Jake is drinking was bought with EBT funds. No, we purchased that.
We purchased that.
And that's something we give to our guests for appearing.
And for taking a beating from you people that like to just hammer them. So disrespectful.
Let's see, a couple of questions out of the chat room. Should ISIS fighters get a $15 minimum wage for working at Mosul McDonald's?
I like this one. Should Israeli porn sites enjoy protection from net neutrality under Obama's immigration plan? To which he actually responded, they should be able to have anchor babies in Israel. And I think he meant the Palestinians.
Right, not the Israelis?
Not the Israelis.
They're getting kicked out either way.
Right. Global warming has. Do you think global warming has created most of the need for net neutrality?
No.
There you go. Straight answer from Straight Talking Jake.
It makes for great radio. These guys have really cracked it. Just yes and no, yes and no, yes and no. That's just excellent radio. All right, next.
You said lightning round.
Moving on. California welfare queen law.
So California has a welfare queen law. And essentially what the law, in California of all places,
I know,
is actually kind of a conservative law. Went back in, I think, 96 when they did the welfare reform laws. They passed a law, signed into law by Governor Pete Wilson, a Republican governor at the time, although the Democrats were still in charge of the legislative body of the state. And essentially it capped welfare, or the ability for folks to claim welfare if they have new children while receiving welfare under this program. And essentially, if somebody was receiving welfare 10 months prior to the birth of the child, they could not receive additional welfare for the birth of the child. And essentially it was to prevent people from engaging in sexual intercourse and getting pregnant to receive additional funding. And there's a push now in the state among the Dems, and they used to have a supermajority. They don't anymore. They still have a majority. The Republicans did pick up some seats, but there is a push to repeal this law, which is perfect because California can totally afford to pay people to have more kids.
Well,
and look, there are some folks that say, well, the child poverty rate in California is the highest in the nation. It's not our fault that they keep having kids.
Right.
If people are on assistance and they can't afford to have more kids, then use contraception. Your choice comes when you decide to engage in unprotected sexual intercourse.
Or just don't have sex.
The flawed argument that
let's not get ridiculous.
some of the Dems that are in favor of repealing this, their fundamental argument is that they wrote this law in and it had this rule to prevent people from having more kids. And they acknowledge that didn't work, that legislating this didn't prevent people from having children that they can't afford. So therefore, why shouldn't we just repeal this law?
And pay more money that we can't afford?
Exactly. That's the secondary part. So the first part is I'm just going to disagree with that logic that's not why the law exists.
Right.
The law exists because we can't afford to care for everybody else's kids, and at this current state, $205 million is the current projection according to the article I just read 30 seconds ago to prepare for this segment. That's what it's going to cost us. So.
Yeah, and you're right. We can't afford that. And look, California is a very, very liberal state. That's not any secret. And the welfare system here is ridiculous, to say the least. Look, the one part of the law that I would be willing to support reforming is if there is a pregnancy due to rape, incest, something like that, where there was no individual choice exercised on the part of the mother. That, I think, is a different situation than engaging in unprotected intercourse. Whatever the case is.
But in that exact situation, is she going to be going to welfare in order to get fundraising, or is that going to be more of a victim of violent crime where they're going to be receiving funding through that kind of a...
Exactly. It already exists, but
right.
It already exists, but I don't know if you get continued assistance for support of that child under victims of a crime.
Let's rape Sacco and find out.
Wow.
Under California law, men cannot be raped because rape under California law is. Do you know the specific?
I believe it's the penis penetrating the vagina, however.
Right, but Sacco could be sodomized.
I don't know. I haven't checked. He might have a vagina.
This is true, Sacco.
Oh, really?
Well, hang on a second. Sacco's going to respond.
No, why?
Because we don't know. We've never checked either.
This is just going to go downhill so fast.
The answer to your question is no, I don't have a vagina.
Okay.
Have you ever? Never mind. But Sacco could be sodomized.
Okay. That's not how babies are made.
No, we're talking hypothetically, Sacco.
I cannot be sodomized. Will not allow it.
Well,
my hair would intervene. I have barriers everywhere.
And this happens the last part of the show.
Put your headphones back on.
Minutes are always
Put your
adult
headphones
time.
back on. Get your radio face on.
Right.
When we get this.
Okay, all right.
Holly Mitchell is the state senator who's pushing to get this bill
We're so screwed when the
repealed.
FCC takes over. We're just screwed.
We're going to have one show that's adult only, just so you know. Holly Mitchell is the state senator who's introducing this legislation. This is her third attempt to get this repealed. And I don't know if she has a shot to do it or not. I guess she has a shot. I would hope not. But even if it passes, I don't know that Governor Brown would sign it. He's been pretty conservative on a lot of fiscal policy, except for the train.
This goes
because people that need to commute between Bakersfield.
But this goes down the social road, and he's been very, very liberal on the social aspect of it.
It has, but this really isn't a social. I mean, it is a social issue, but it's also a fiscal issue.
Right, but no, this crosses into the social. We have to take care of everybody, despite what they've done to create their own situation. And I worry about that because we talked about abortion a couple months ago and him loosening who can actually perform them and he jumped on that. I kind of put this under that.
I think
same,
Michael Jackson's doctor or former doctor can perform them now, right? I think something like that.
I think he's good to go on that.
Check it out, yeah.
I think Dr. Demento's allowed to under California law now.
Okay.
And
Dr. Octopus is
all okay to go.
That, yeah.
But I feel that he's going to go down the social aspect.
Dr. Scholes.
Dr. Scholes. He's a doctor.
Dr. Pepper. There's a few people that can.
And Mr. Pip.
Right.
Who's
not even a doctor, but he's
just his
more
assistant.
Of a practitioner, right.
But
and Squirt.
So
that's how things.
All I have in my head is Doc Ock performing 8 abortions simultaneously. That's all I can focus on.
Sorry about that. Dr. Dre, he's another one.
Dr. Dre.
Well, he's already in the California State Museums.
He is because he invented
Dr. Phil, no license, California can't.
He's not.
Oh, he can't. Okay.
I don't think you need to be licensed in California. I don't think that matters anymore. But I think he's going to go down the social aspect of this. Well, it's social. It's the right thing to do. It's that social justice, and that needs to be taken care of, and these people need to be saved. And I think that's going to be the route. I think he'll sign it. I don't think the fiscal aspect will outweigh the social aspect in this.
And then where does the money come from?
Oh, well, we're in California, like they've ever cared about that.
California should print its own money.
They might as well at this point. They spend enough of it.
We should just print our own money, monetize our own debt, and that would take care of everything. It's worked for the feds. Wait, what?
Well, the feds only do it because for some reason we allow them to do it. And listen, this is scary to me because you already have a population that knows to have 3. And as much as nobody likes to talk about this, there are neighborhoods and groups who will absolutely have 3 kids to get the most money they can out of welfare. And in other states, you have people who keep having kids to get more money. And no matter what rules and fail-safes you put into the system, they're always sidestepped. I think it's very irresponsible. I don't think that repealing this is going to change anything one way or the other. It's just going to make it worse and cost more money.
Look, in '96, remember in '96 under Clinton, there was a national welfare reform.
Mm-hmm.
And there were similar laws signed into effect. So the Democrats have supported this ideal before. Again, the Democratic-controlled legislature passed this in 96, 97, when it was signed into law here by the Republican governor. So obviously there have been Democrats who see the value in this type of policy. At what point do you cap it, or do you just not cap it at all? You allow. I mean, look, it's not that you're allowing them to engage in irresponsible behavior. They're making that choice, and that's their right in a free society to engage in that behavior. And I support that. I may not agree with it if you don't have the financial ability to go that, but I support their ability and their right to make that decision. But it is not up to the government or me as a taxpayer to support those decisions. Right? If I have a child, nobody else gives me more money for every child I have. As a matter of fact, at some point, I make too much money where I can't even get a tax credit for the children I have.
Right.
Right? So
you get penalized.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rich. But why are we going to allow, through taking other people's money away, to allow people to engage in this type of behavior? It's not the government's job to deal with that. If they can't afford to have more children, then engage in responsible behavior. Sometimes things happen, and I get that. And if you want to amend the law to say, hey, if you are a victim of rape, as confirmed through police report, whatever it is, then hey, okay, I can understand. I'm not saying I would necessarily support that. I may not necessarily not support that. It would depend how the law was written. But I can understand having that discussion and argument for, hey, maybe we need to have some taxpayer fundings based upon the victimology in this particular case or whatever it is to take care of this child and this mother in this circumstance, because that's a horrible thing to do, particularly if the mother elects to keep that child that was conceived in those terrible circumstances. I can understand that from an emotional standpoint. But just because they engage in irresponsible behavior, yeah, we shouldn't be paying for that. Whew, this was kind of a heavy show.
I want to get Jake's opinion on this.
Jake agrees with us.
Yep.
Full?
Yeah.
All right. Well. Whew. I didn't see that coming.
That was a lot. I'm spent. I feel like what movie was that where he just goes off on an entire tangent?
It was
Old School? Yeah.
Yeah, where he's taking on Carvel.
Yes.
And then he just lays down and passes out, which is exactly what we're going to do after this show.
That's what Jake already did.
Last but not least, you want to talk about
Lois Lerner?
Yes.
She got a lot of money. So between 2010 and 2013, she got $129,000 in taxpayer money as a bonus. She was so awesome at her job that we had to give her almost $130,000 just to keep her there.
Well,
I wish I was so good at my job that they gave me a bonus of $130,000.
Yeah,
over
me too.
3 years. It was over 3 years.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's even better. That makes it all okay.
In other words, every year they did a review on her and decided she was doing such an awesome job, they're going to keep throwing it at her.
Well, and I haven't heard that argument. The simple remark is that if she were to quit, resign, or retire, that they didn't have anybody to replace her. So it's not like anyone's ever made the argument that she's doing such a good job that she gets a bonus. It's that they don't have anyone less inept to replace her. So
then let her go anyways and fill the vacancy. I'm pretty sure that place could continue to function without...
I don't think the IRS would have stopped working.
Right.
If I would have liked to have seen it.
Right.
I really would have liked to have seen if the IRS just shut down all of a sudden. Like, oh, we didn't give Lerner quit. Because after she resigned, which somehow she was allowed to resign, I still paid taxes this year. I had to.
Right.
I got the bill in the mail. So the IRS found a way to keep going on after she left. And we use Lerner as the example, but this goes to, I don't believe the federal government should be giving anyone bonuses.
I agree.
If
they go private sector, they go private sector.
Right, but that's up to the private sector to deal with. But as the federal government, I don't feel
Maybe I have a theory. Maybe it's a ruse that the money was paid as a bonus to keep her. Maybe that money was paid because they try and boost her income up so high, the rest of the women in the administration that are underpaid, it kind of brings that up. So maybe this was a way for the administration to hide the pay inequality of women in this administration.
Well, you know,
what do you think about that theory?
I think
Jake?
it's possible.
It's very valuable. You got you put only one above the glass ceiling, but you put her so high above that it balances out the other. I mean, that's just math, and they're good at that.
Now we're getting stuff done. And if we can do bonuses, I
think we should get a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the federal government should give us a bonus because, just because. But I pay its bills. It
you got to have a third kid. You got to have a third one.
We have to have another kid.
It's going to throw something back at me. Well, no, I think we should start giving the president a bonus to actually do his damn job. If the federal government's all about bonuses, why not give something to the president?
Because he hasn't done anything that he's supposed to do.
But maybe he would start. You know what I mean?
I don't want this president to start doing anything.
I'm just saying, if they're already going to start this BS trend,
I want him to stop doing what he's doing. You see our friend Hans Gruber?
Yes, Hans is out of yet another job.
Jonathan Gruber. We call him Hans because of
the architect of Obamacare.
Yeah, we call him Hans because that was the bad guy in Die Hard.
Right.
And so he's the bad guy of the world, so we call him Hans Gruber. He should be like a Marvel villain. Jonathan Gruber. Right? Avengers 3.
Gruber's back and he wants to pass another law.
The Avengers are so stupid
that they'll never believe that the socialism job stuff will work.
Captain America, he's clearly stupid. His name's stupid. He got fired.
Again.
From Massachusetts. How are you such a liberal and you get fired from Massachusetts? This is your state. So you need to speak to this.
The new Republican governor was like, yeah, you're done. So he oversaw the exchanges for the state, part of the Obamacare exchanges, and They haven't released a reason yet because this happened late this afternoon.
Because he's a douchebag.
I
think is the unofficial reason that leaked out to sackheads.
I don't know if that's in his exit interview.
No, but it was leaked out to Sackheads Radio. Perhaps that might have been
Mr.
the
Gruber,
reason.
just so you're aware and you can get all your stuff arranged, you're being released from duty because you're a douchebag. Under Article number 2 of the Douchebag Act of 1944.
Which is when that act was actually not only passed, but that's when the term was coined to refer to a specific individual. A little history lesson most folks don't know.
But Charlie Baker, the Republican governor of Massachusetts, did demand he be fired, and he has been since released. He was working with the state exchange, which essentially implements Obamacare on a local level, but they haven't given a reason yet. It's going to be interesting to see what the reason was. It would be awesome if he came out and be like, yeah, I don't want somebody who lies to the American people working for me. Just something that simple. I would actually applaud that like there's no tomorrow. I think that would be a great reason. I'm sure there's going to be some legal rigmarole.
So are you saying Charlie Baker for president?
Not yet.
Is that just what I heard?
No, not yet.
Okay. Because if Charlie Baker came out and said, yeah, we fired him because he lied and he's pretty much a douchebag, and used those words exactly, I would volunteer to run his campaign for president.
What a great thing for a governor to come out and say.
That's what I think. This is why I am never
just so you
electable.
know, we had a meeting, and in that meeting, we fired Gruber. And Gruber's essentially fired for being a douchebag.
Yeah, public douchebaggery. We can't have it. It's against the Commonwealth Code.
And so we tossed him out in his ass. Right. Which is the legal wording, of course, in Massachusetts for firing.
Right.
We toss someone out in their ass, they're fired. And that's part of the Commonwealth language. So, yeah, he's going to get his walking papers.
I like it.
Thanks, Governor. A couple other people are going to get tossed out in their ass, too. And we have our ass tossing commission that meets once a week.
The ATC.
God, I miss home sometimes. Not so much for the politics, but just hearing outright good speech like that. Just...
What are you talking about? You get that every week on the Sackhead show.
But there's just that little edge, that little attitude, and oh man, did you hear more intelligence from the state that I grew up in? Did you hear the mayor of Boston had to beg people to stop jumping out second and third story windows into snow piles and putting it on YouTube?
What was his call to like this fire hydrant's under there? You know,
yeah, essentially.
Did anybody impale themselves on a fire hydrant? Or, I mean, why would he need... Because that sounds like fun. I'm not going to lie.
Well, because too many kids were getting hurt in sledding accidents and second and third story
Did you
jumping.
say sledding accident?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Very common. Sledding accidents. Look that
we
shit
have
up.
them all the time.
Yeah.
Really?
I was in numerous sledding accidents growing up.
Are you kidding me?
And then they go to the hospital and they can't get no damn Obamacare because, you know.
Because you're in Massachusetts and they've already had that for 10 years. Yeah, no, what's happening is people who don't grow up and live with snow don't understand this. Just because it's piled up doesn't mean there's not giant voids in the middle of it. And you had knuckleheads jumping out of second and third story brownstones with no clothes on and nothing but a pair of drawers and like doing backflips and stuff into these snow piles. And it got to the point that they were having to call for medical attention and all because they're getting stuck and they have to be extricated from a snow pile. So he had to actually go out and say, please, stop jumping out of the window into piles of snow.
But you're in a drawer.
And if you're going to, though, do what I do and just tie an electrical cord to your ankle so your spouse or dog can pull your ass
Can
out.
pull you out whenever you need to, right?
And leave it plugged in.
I would like to remind everyone.
And leave it plugged in.
That Boston
No, don't leave it plugged in.
The greater
because
Boston
you're gonna get
area has
sued.
the highest concentration of colleges in the entire country. And yet we still have to deal with problems like that. So,
coincidence?
I think not. Oh, it's been a fun show.
It has been a fun show.
We're going to start our thank yous early because we have a lot to get to.
I want to thank our in-studio guest, Liberal Jake.
I do want to thank Liberal Jake.
And we love Liberal Jake. He is a good friend of ours.
Yeah, people don't realize that,
Yeah.
you know, again, like I said earlier, part of the fun of this is to have the ideas thrown around, have the discussion. We say all the time, you have to know what the other side's thinking in order to engage them and, as we proved tonight, beat them almost physically.
Right. And, well, you have to know what they believe because obviously there's not a lot of thought that goes into it. So you have to know what kind of their angle is. So I just wanted to go ahead and correct you on that. I'm sorry, Jake.
But
poor Jake. I owe you a drink.
We've already done that. He has the bourbon.
That's right. He's got the bourbon.
But I do want to thank you again for entertaining us and coming in and giving your insight and your knowledge in what you believe in, and actually having the stones to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's three-quarters of it.
And particularly since your face is now out there with the surreptitious photo that was taken and tweeted out all over the place tonight. So the fact that you agreed to that
is pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing.
And a couple more drinks, we'll keep those pictures going. So thank you.
I do want to thank our other in-studio guests. One of these days, this person will speak.
Yes.
Right, because you reveal to that person how easy it is to be a guest on this show.
People don't believe that we have another guest, and this guest is a very, very, very good friend of the show's and of ours, both personally and professionally, and one of these days this person will speak. But we want to thank this person for being here, so thank you.
It's a slow step process.
It is.
Part of the problem is it's hard to get a word edgewise with us, and I totally understand that.
Right, mostly because of you and Sacco.
I want to thank Sacco again tonight for the massive, and most people don't
for the massive amount of hair that you told us about. We want to thank you for that.
No. All serious. Nobody wants to know.
Are you sure?
Yes, we thank you.
I do.
All right, Twitter pictures in about 5.
But once again, and this is what we do to Sacco, 30 minutes before we go on the air, and I know he's on his way here, I text him and be like, hey, can you grab a few extra mic stands?
We have 2 guests.
Oh, by the way, you're going to wire up 2 extra mics. Oh, we have 2 guests in the studio. Can you do this? You do that, and once again, he comes through, and his hard work is greatly appreciated. It's been a rough month for Sacco producing this show, and we're going to have to take him out and get him extremely drunk at some point.
That's going to take him like 1 Zima.
Zima Gold, I'll import him from Japan.
Right, or a near beer.
He's getting a lot better.
Is he?
Yeah, remember when he used to have half a beer and pass out in the chair?
I do actually remember that. We'd be throwing paper wads at him.
I had to stop drinking because of you guys.
You had to stop drinking because
now he's
of
a
us.
full-blown lush because he works on the show. So mission accomplished. I think that's...
I got banned from drinking on the job. That's really what happened.
Not from us.
Not from us. You self-banned because you missed a few breaks.
We encourage that sort of behavior here on the Sackheads Radio Show.
I do have to say, Ag in the chat room does give props to Jake. He says, I do respect Jake's stones.
See?
Right. So you do have love from the chat room because you actually have the testicular fortitude to come out here and talk to our folks.
And I want to thank the chat room tonight. The chat room was
exploding
awesome.
tonight.
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
So many great things. And if you listen to the show and you don't get in the chat room, you miss a large portion of it.
So good job.
So
You're welcome.
Follow up.
Yeah, way to follow up. Way to be in on the action. Way to actually take responsibility and be part of the solution.
We will see you next week here at 8 p.m. Pacific time on the Sackheads Radio Show. Thank you, my friend. What?
I want to read another
Fingers
comment.
up.
It says, not a lot of libs willing to step up and get goofed on.
Well, it's really true.
That's absolutely true.
Because as much as we make the political argument, we also are insulting as all hell.
How did we insult Jake one time tonight?
I think it started with the beat
I
red
said
face.
one time because I think it went on a lot more than that. So
it was
probably
one
a few
continuous, really. But he hung in there and he put up with our crap, and he keeps coming back for some reason, and I don't know why.
Because we're a hell of a lot of fun to hang out with, even though we may not agree on everything.
We're a blast.
We actually are a blast. And I can't wait to meet all of our friends in Vegas because you think we're fun now.
Oh, yeah. Wait till you see us with a couple cocktails in us. I mean, wait till you see us in person. We will see.
You'll be disappointed at the sight, but we're hilarious.
No, not with me. They're going to be like, oh, it's exactly as they've described. He's a chubby, balding white guy. I really thought this would be like ironic, like he'd show up, be like 6'4" and
right,
buff.
like real, like it's Thor.
Nope, pot belly and bald. Nothing you can do about it, kids.
Harry with a Boston accent.
It's just as awful as it sounds.
Look, it is a portly, short, bald guy and Big Bird. They're exactly interesting. Okay, well, hi guys.
So I'm guessing cousin Ed is Sacco. Yes.
Yes,
okay, good.
This is good. No, is that Captain Caveman? Or is that? No, that's Sacco.
We'll see you next.
Hang on, Sacco's young. Sacco, real quick. Bing Captain Caveman image. Search it, and you'll know what we're talking about, because I know you're kind of a youngster. And we are going to dress up as Taggart Rosewood and Axel Foley when we get together with Ken.
With Ken.
I'm Rosewood. Taggart is going to be Sean.
Yeah, well,
and, of course, Axel Foley will be Ken, not because he's as good-looking as Eddie Murphy, but because he's the only black guy we have. So
he wins by default.
He wins by default.
We'll see you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific here on the Sackheads Radio Show on the SHR Media Network. Sacco, take us home.
And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Talk news. Talk news.
Radio.
Talk news. Talk news.
Radio.
The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.